Oh, shit. I just lost the sheet. Hold on. Crap. Where is that? Oh, there it is. Found it. No, but it's good. Stayed at Caesars. That's where she played. It was good. It was a long Saturday because we flew out at like 9 a.m. out of Milwaukee. So we're going to go preventing foul. We're going to talk about preventing foul trouble. We're going to talk about replicating postseason game environments.
I thought the topics were good.
Talk about attending the state tournament worth the coach's time. And then if we have time, we'll go through end of season ideas and discussion. Hi. People are waving at me as they walk by. Maybe they'll subscribe to the podcast. Can only hope. I think I have this week's podcast done too. Let me look.
I think you do.
I do. I think
this was just kind of. We were kind of really planning ahead because.
Yeah, we'll have to get together in a couple. Yeah, I have this week's is mental health and sleep, so that will give me time to get this edited. Then that will work.
Yeah, you'll be good.
All right, hold on. Okay. So front first, right, for the intro, and then when Jake starts talking, look over here. Okay, perfect. All right, welcome to High School Hoops. Not from the Fifth Quarter Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, but in the Blue Wire Studios in the Wynn Casino, which I have to stay at. That's my next thing. I have to stay here next time. It's really nice. Anyway, in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's a balmy 58 degrees. What's it in Wisconsin, Jake?
My computer says like 41.
Oh, that's not bad.
So not much different.
I know we had a bunch of snow the other day.
We did. It was terrible.
It was pretty bad. And we're coming to the end of the high school basketball season in Wisconsin. I know.
Yep. Girls tournament starts this week. Your last week of regular season.
Yeah.
Not girls tournament, playoffs.
I'm gonna tell all the high school coaches. So first of all, this is how crazy Coach Collins is. So here's what happened. We played a game on Friday. I don't know if you've watched that game yet, but we played a game on Friday and beat Madison West.
Well, you kind of blew them out, so I don't know if it was worth my time.
I got scolded by the officials, though. I was told I needed to build.
Then I'll have to watch it.
I was told I needed to build bridges rather than yell at them. That's a direct quote. He goes, "I'm going to go home mad because I should have given you a technical." And my response is, "Well, there's still time. You can give me one as I'm sitting here not doing anything." It wasn't a great. Anyway, so we won that game Friday night. Easily 35. Could have gotten running clock. Won by 38, I think. And so then we leave the next morning for Vegas out of Milwaukee at 9 a.m. Land here at noon. Take a nap. Go to Adele for my wife. And then we're doing the podcast the next morning, Sunday morning. Fly out on a red eye, get back into Milwaukee at 1 a.m. Back at probably at the house about 3 a.m. Get up at 7 a.m. to go to school, have practice, and then we play Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday next week, end of the regular season. So that's how crazy
all three
Coach
games
Collins.
And all three games are conference games.
All
aren't
three
they?
games are conference games.
Yeah,
and they all depend. They're all
how many are away and how many are home?
2 are home, 1 is away.
That helps.
That helps a little bit. But anyway, and I'm not 25 anymore. You know, I midnight last night. I'm ready to go to bed. Days that I would have stayed up really, really late. I would have stayed up really late. The Crab Saber cooled last night. So I always tell people that craps is the second best game ever invented. Second best game ever invented.
What's first? Basketball?
Of course it is. Thank you. I always say that to my students, and they pause, and they go, well, what's the first game? It's like, well, what do you think it is? It's like, but craps is an awesome. I love craps. It's a great game. Great game. And I'm a stats teacher, so it makes sense. Anyway, how are you? Winding the season down.
Good.
Let's talk some high school hoops then. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I've been watching a lot of hoops lately.
You have been.
A lot of college hoops, a lot of high
your
school.
scout on Team X, which I won't mention, was really good. It got canceled, but it was really good.
Yeah, I told my wife how frustrated I was at the weather that day. I said I watched them like 5 different games, man.
It was a great scout.
5 different games.
We might play them the first round too. The seeds are coming out in like an hour and a half.
Yeah, they got their 3 o'clock. They got their 3 o'clock release party today.
The release party, yeah. Our state associations, high school state associations, trying to be like the NCAA's. It's like, okay, it really isn't. Then hire a committee to do it if you're going to do that.
Exactly. That's okay. That's a good point.
Yeah, we just had that discussion. I know. And people are looking much more, as I'm sitting here in the studios at the Blue Wire Studios in Vegas, and there's these glass things. People are looking more awake than they were a couple hours ago. I'm telling you, it's like it's 10:40, almost 11. I think people are slowly starting to move and figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for my kids' college education now that I lost it all at the craps table? But seriously, it's something like that. All right, so let's talk. I got a bunch of topics. We're just going to go through them. We'll go through what we have to do with them, and then we'll go on to the next one. So the first one is what to do to prevent foul trouble. So
I've been watching a lot of games, okay. And I'm still noticing people getting in foul trouble at this point of the season. Don't you think at this point you should have that under control?
100%. I mean, so here's the issue I have with foul trouble. So it's two things. First of all, I kind of have the steadfast rule that if you pick up 2 fouls early, I'm pulling you. I'm going to sit you.
So you have some strategy in place.
I do.
Because I don't always think coaches have strategies in place.
I don't know if it's always a good strategy. I think they kind of go by the feel
of the game.
I don't know if it's a good strategy.
Well, it depends on what player it is too, especially if he's a scorer.
I know. It's like the 2017 state championship game. I pulled Jake, who plays for the Dallas Cowboys now, Jake Ferguson.
Yep.
You remember that? And I pulled him when he got 2 fouls.
Because it was a bogus foul. It was a bogus foul.
It was a bogus. Don't get me started. I don't need to get more wired this early in the morning. It was a horrible call. Horrible call. Anyway.
Well, it's 12:41 in Wisconsin. So okay. Anyway, my body might be feeling a little bit different than your body.
It was a horrible call. I sat him because he had 2 fouls in the first half. I probably shouldn't have. We maybe win the state title because I think we win the next game if we win that one because that was in the state semifinals. And I sat him, and we never could get over the hump. Anyway, so there are times I think to play people with foul trouble. I think a good rule is to pull them when they get.
What do you do in that situation if you got to keep a player in? What advice could you go?
It's switching. I think I changed defenses. I think
that's kind of part of the discussion that I really want to dive in today a little bit is what do you do if you got to keep that player on the floor? Are you switching defense, switch up matchups, alter your defense. I think there's ways around it,
Right. Well, there's a couple things. First of all, let's talk about the teaching point before we talk about the coaching point. So the teaching point is showing hands. Like you get the fouls because the hands are low. You get the fouls because they're swiping. When you show hands high, and the Badgers are not playing very well right now, and I think even Coach Gard would agree with that. They're not playing, and they're losing some games, but they do defensively show hands really well. That's a Wisconsin.
They do, and I would say some of the best basketball I've seen is the ability to. I think you can also train players to understand some of the key rules. Right, we all know that there's some key focuses when we started season, what referees are going to call, right? The hand check with the 2 hands, the difference between going at an angle compared to being straight up,
right.
Like those are immediate fouls that you can get rid of by teaching and working with kids in your practice, right?
Well, again, going to the teaching points, I think it's showing hands. I recently had a discussion with one of my guards about this is like the foul up on top is different than the foul underneath. And they go, what do you mean it's a foul? I go, I understand. You got so I literally stopped practice and showed them the 3 spots that the coaches would be, not the coaches, the officials would be. I said, the official's right there. So they know where, I mean, they see it. Grandma sees it in the 3rd seat. That's the issue. So if grandma sees it in the 3rd seat, the official feels like they have to call it at that point. So you can bang underneath. You can do whatever you want under the basket. Like go watch an NBA or collegiate game. It's no different if it's high school basketball. It's like, so that contact is so much different. So I think the nuances for high school coaches that are listening to this is it's the teaching points. It's the showing the hands. It's explaining the type of fouls. You know, is taking a charge and getting your 2nd or 3rd one. That's a different type of foul than that stupid, silly little reach up top that everyone in the gym knows is a foul. Like everyone knows that's a foul. And if it isn't a foul, it looks like a foul. If it smells like a skunk, it's probably a skunk. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, it's getting into that teenage brain, that high school player brain. You have to simplify it so much for them to explain to them what you're talking about in terms of that foul prevention.
I think what makes it difficult, though, because in even coaching for so many years, is that sometimes it's a tale of 2 halves, though, because sometimes refs will call it really tight early, right? And then usually they'll call it, you know, and then it's really hard for kids to adjust, you know?
Well, you look up there and it's 7-2. The foul ratio is 7-2.
Right.
I can guarantee you from someone who's coached 600 high school basketball games, more than that, that at some point they're going to balance out that 7 and that 2. Because again, like I said earlier today, the accountant who's been working all day and just threw his bag in and is coming and officiating the game is having all these people harp at them. They're going to balance it out. So
it's also depending who's making the calls. Yes. A lot of time it's one or two referees. So
out of the
it
3,
might be a tale of 2.
I guarantee that so you'll love this. That happened last night. There was an official, 3 officials, and one of them hadn't made a call, like in 20 minutes of the game. Of course, I turned to one of my coaches. I go, has he blown his whistle yet tonight? Of course, he blows his whistle like 3 straight times at that point. But you're right. It's like it's who's under the basket. It's the rotation of the teams that causes who's going to make what specific calls. I think too. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I also think that it depends on you gotta delegate, and you gotta work with your coaches too to make sure they're keeping track of foul trouble too. I've been watching games this year where I would see foul trouble happening and the assistant coach did not let the head coach know. Now, is it the head coach's responsibility? Yes, but if you delegate that, then it's not that situation. I've watched 3 or 4 games this year where girls have fouled out with 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and they're like, "Oh, she had 4 fouls." Like, how do you let that happen?
Right. Well,
it happens more than you think, though.
We actually had a mistake the other night because my assistants told me one guy, and it should have been on the guy they told me, but the official called it on someone else. So I subbed the one out because I think he had 2 or 3 fouls. Well, then he comes out, but then I look up, and then they figure it out because the official messed up, to be honest with you. So it's like it's that communication. It's no different than with the kids. So what do you think? Anything else that you see with preventing fouls?
I like your point about teaching the kids the right way to play in regards to the emphasis. I think your hands up are great, moving your feet. And you know, I think those are really, really good points. I mean, I think there's often a lot of body check fouls are a majority of the game, right? In my opinion, off the ball handler, right? And I think you have to prepare those players in practice, whether you're doing zigzags or, you know, and constantly working on that every day, because that's where primarily a lot of the fouls, and then just eliminating stupid fouls, you know, like you know this, and the ones that you just want to take your water bottle and throw where a kid misses a shot, they get the rebound, he decides to hand check from 84 feet from the basket. It happens every game I watch.
Well, and
like seriously,
and part of it's reading where you are, where the officials are. Yeah, there's no understanding of the entire game at all. like from a high school player. That's how you prevent fouls. It's like you don't put yourself in those situations. You're not going to go through a high school season and never have a foul, but you got to be able to read the situation. It's like, why is this a foul? Why are they calling that? The big one,
I just think those are really good discussion points.
Right. The big one I've
With
seen
kids.
recently is the moving screen up top.
Big time. Big time.
It's like, well, they lowered their shoulder. Like, they didn't lower. What are you talking about? They didn't lower their shoulder. They were standing straight up. That makes no sense to me that you would make that call. It's like they're not lowering their shoulder. Well, they moved. They're not moving that much. So I think that's the one that officials are really leaning into because again, it's an obvious call. I think it's the reason. Don't you think? I mean, that's my feeling. It looks obvious.
But I also think a lot of the fouls are happening around the perimeter because the game is so much more around the 3-point line. So I also think refs are just getting bored. They're so used to being 10 years ago where a lot of the fouls were occurring around the basket, which they're not anymore. They're happening way before that point. They're happening 20, 30 feet outside the basket because they're setting high ball screens. The game is so different than it was, 10 years ago. Right. It's just a different game. And I think they kind of get antsy, like, oh man, I got to call a foul. Like, at some point, like they feel like they can have control of that game.
Do you think the game's gotten more physical? The high school game?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, again, I'm going to age myself. The last podcast I talked about the Jack Sikma move, so that's how much I aged myself. But I remember the Bad Boys. I remember that was like the Jordan era. Like it was like.
Oh, then I would tell you the game. Well, then I would say overall the game has gotten way more softer. Way more softer.
Oh yeah, there's like those guys. So, Lampier played because he was just physical. Like he just literally would physically beat people.
Think what Michael Jordan's numbers would have been if you get rid of defensive 3 seconds in the lane. Think about that. I mean, that's a whole other topic of discussion.
Oh, trust me, that's a rabbit hole we do not want to go down.
No, but I'm just saying. Player, I mean we don't need to make goat comments about anything today. But I mean, that's just a valid point. The game is a lot softer, but the game is still built around the 3-point line.
John Havlicek, goat. There you go.
Okay.
I just saw a tweet on that recently, actually. When you compare his statistics to Michael's, it's interesting. He's not the best player of all time. I'm just fooling around. But when you look at the number of championships and all that kind of stuff for Havlicek, it's interesting. All right. Anything else with foul trouble before we move on to the next topic?
I think that was a good discussion.
Okay. All right. So next one I'd like to talk about is how do you replicate tournament time in practice?
Yep.
And I'm gonna take in this because, like you said, we're a week away. In about a couple hours, they're going to be releasing our seeds for our tournament. First of all, replicating for the high school season, a replicating tournament, you should if you're waiting till a week or two before it's too late. There are several things I think go into this criteria. First thing is mentally preparing them for what it's going to be like, what the gym's going to be like, how it's going to be hotter, how it's going to be fuller crowds, all these things, how it's going to be one and done. I've been talking about this for a month and a half about this is like tournament time. You lose, you go home. Like we got to pretend like we can't lose this game. That's maybe why we've won 11 of our last 13, I think. So I think that is it. I think also a lot of the situational work should be ramping up now, because games get closer, games get more physical. We spend at the beginning of the season very little time on situations, and I know we had a podcast about this, but then we ramp that up. We also in our program have some traditions that we do, and I'm not going to share them all in this podcast because I'm still coaching and I don't want to give all my secret sauces away. But we have a lot of traditions that are just tournament traditions, things we just do because it's tournament time. Here's how we do this. Here's how we do this. And I think that
do you feel like you need to focus at one game at a time for the kids? But obviously you know that your coaches and so forth, you've been preparing already months ago getting film for multiple
Oh
people.
yeah,
from the
we've
sectional,
got film
and
on
delegating and so
everybody.
forth.
We've got film on everybody in our sectional already.
I know. I really enjoy your huddle. It's amazing. And also, I watch a lot of good basketball.
Yeah,
It's been nice.
I put a couple of behind the scene things. You should watch those. I don't make those
I will.
public. Those are more for teaching. Those are more for me. And I don't know if I put them on huddle. I might have put them on somewhere else because it's more for like when I do my pregame or I just want to watch how I'm doing it to get the nuances of my coaching. But yes, for me, since probably that 36-hour bus ride back from Florida in December, I've been thinking about tournament and preparing, just thinking about it, but more preparing, like getting the tape. It's not like we don't have synergy.
So, but like for you, I mean, you've been doing this so long, and you got it down to a science because you've won multiple state titles. What would you say to a new coach that's just really getting their feet wet at the head coaching? What is the best aim towards playoffs? I mean, you got it down to a science.
First of all, you need help.
Right.
You're going to need help with scouts. You're going to need help with breakdowns. So you got to delegate. That's the first thing. Like we have our senior night, parent night, senior night on Tuesday. It's Sunday when we're doing this. I mean, I go buy the things. Like I'll buy the things like flowers and the programs and those. I'll buy those.
Yeah.
Personally, that's my gift to them. But the other stuff is all delegated, either the senior parents or my assistant coaches or all that kind of stuff. Because I don't know, I'm worried about our opponent. I'm worried about getting us ready. So I think one of the big things is to be able to delegate a lot of those nuances to. I always say it's below my pay grade. My pay grade's not that high, actually, but it's always below my pay grade.
So how do you replicate playing back-to-back just some of the times throughout the season where you play back-to-back?
That is
because
hard.
That's a special gift in itself. It is hard.
That is hard.
It's I mean, like the state tournament in itself, like when you were in 2000s, I mean, you were playing 3 games in 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yep. So that, again, it goes to preparation. Like we'll already, once the seeds come out, we'll figure out who we're playing Friday and who we could possibly play on Saturday. We'll have, so the key is hydration, the key is sleep, and the key is what they eat within several hours of the end of the game. Are you
having your assistant coaches then fast drawing all the other teams to have that in preparation?
Yes.
Whether it's.
So we'll have the 3 teams for that weekend. We don't worry about the next week. So we play somebody on Friday, and then we will have all 3 ready.
Okay.
For after that game. So we win on Friday. I'm knocking.
So you got the team that you're playing, and then obviously what?
Yeah. So
the 2 teams that you could possibly play.
So we have to have 2 scouts. So you do work on stuff that you won't use. Yep, 100%.
Right, it happens. That's just what you got to do. You got to overwork to win. That's just the way it is. You got to outwork them.
So we'll win on Friday, either home or away. I don't know. Probably be away this year. How crazy our sectional is. So away, and then we will jump on the bus. We will hand them the scout of the team we're playing, because we'll know as soon as we find out on Twitter or whatever. We'll hand them that scout, Team A or Team B. Team B will get thrown away. Team A, they'll get handed. And then we will also feed them. So we have to replenish them at that point with what they just lost. So so they'll have an apple, they'll have some nuts, they'll have a sandwich.
You take a lot of initiative to make sure these kids are eating right.
I've already talked to a nutritionist that I can replenish everything that they've lost as long as I do it within about 2 hours of that.
That's a great tidbit,
game.
Man. That's awesome.
So as coaches, that's what you got to think about, because back-to-back is, for us, is 72 minutes of playing within, a 24-hour period.
Because what, for you this week, next weekend, it's going to be Friday, Saturday, right?
So this week, we play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah, you got obviously regular season.
Yep, but then the end of the week would be, we won't be in the play-in game on Tuesday, so we will play Friday, Saturday. Right. So we will also start hydrating them starting Sunday, a week from today, basically. We'll start hydrating them. And we have they think I'm crazy. We have a hydration scale from 1 to 8 or 1 to 7. I forgot what it was. And they should always be 1, 2, or 3. 3, you're getting dehydrated. 4, you are dehydrated. And it's basically a color from clear urine to all the way to you should go see a doctor. No one should be, it's brownish almost, your kidneys are shutting down or something. I don't know. But And I'm always telling them, are you hydrating? Are you hydrating? Are you 1 through 3? Because the issue is that second night tends to be a packed house. That second night tends to be hotter. Because here's what happens in Wisconsin. They don't have this problem in Nevada. The problem is it's middle of March, and you know what March is like in Wisconsin. It starts getting warmer, but the heat's still on in the schools, and you put 2,000 people in a gym. So that's not a great combination for how warm it can be.
Sickness too.
Say that again?
It also is a spread. It could be a easy catalyst for sickness because of all that warm temperature in people. It
is, and it's close. Yes. So I don't even want to cross the bridge of sickness. But yes, I know what you're talking about. But anyway, so we always, and if they don't hydrate, they cramp. They're cramping that second night. That's the issue. And that's something we always, the food we'll give them a Gatorade, we'll give them a water, we'll give them a chocolate milk. Chocolate milks are actually really good for getting everything they need back in them. No, I do live in the dairy state, but it is true. Do some science on it. Water's really good too, but I can sometimes get the chocolate milk down them better than I can.
All right, so then the last question I would have is, there's moments in the game where they just have to make a decision themselves. How do you replicate that? I mean, it's easy to put it. I mean, it's just trusting your players. I mean, is that just a product of what you've done all year? You just have to be able to trust them to make the right choice, because there's going to be a moment. You've said this we've been doing this podcast for like almost 5 years. There's going to be some point when a big game, you're just going to have to make a decision because you won't be able to hear me. How do you replicate that?
Yeah, they couldn't hear me on Tuesday at Craig because it was senior night. You replicate it with again, I'm giving some secrets away. You take the speaker system in the school and you find some background noise on YouTube or something. You just play it really loud so they can't hear you.
Yeah.
So it's the sole reason, and you know this. It's the reason we have numbers. It's the reason we have colors. It's the reason we have hand signals like fist or open hand. But they got to talk to each other. Like we had a miscommunication in the Craig game on Tuesday. And I was hot because they just weren't, like, there was a substitution and they weren't talking to each other. And it was the nuance of like, that's on you. That's not on me. That's on you not communicating. Right. But yes, I think that's that communication part of it, I think, is a really big thing moving forward. Anything else on postseason? What did you do on postseason?
Just one game at a time.
1-0, that kind of Badger thing.
Yeah, that mentality. Not making them, obviously we do the back work, but having them focus on that game. Sometimes the kids tend to look up past an opponent, and that's the last thing you want to have them do.
Right.
Just focus on trying to get their mind. That you're looking ahead, because that's just good practice. That you're always looking ahead to opponents you're playing in the regular season, because there's just not enough time in the day. You're going to have to do some, I always say, front loading, right? And I think for kids, though, it's just really about we got to go out, we got to win the one game at a time, one game at a time, And I just think that also in practice, your drills got to be very meaningful, and you don't want to have long practices. I think you got to be intentional.
I know.
I think it's got to be really driven.
It's so hard this time of year not to have long practices, because we have so many things to work through. But it is. You're right, because their legs are shot. 3
games this week.
I know. It's going to be tight. It's going to be short, and it's going to be tight. That's the issue. We're going to work on our plays. We're going to work on our quick hitters. We're going to work on those specifics that we can do in 3 reps, 3 perfect reps, and we move on, because I got to keep their legs.
I just think at this point, skill development, fundamentals, all those things kind of go to the wayside, because if they don't have it down at this point, it's not gonna showcase in the season. I think I do think that you got to get lots of free throws up, lots of shots up.
Yes, and don't over add. Another tidbit for the high school coaches that are listening: don't be adding stuff. Now, can you do some little nuances? Yes, but don't be adding like a new offense this time of year, because it won't work. It won't be effective. Well. I agree. I 100% agree. All right. Any other closing things with that topic, Coach?
No.
You like
Good
that?
Luck this postseason.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you think we can win a few games?
The way that you're playing, absolutely.
I think so. I think we're playing pretty good. Go watch the Craig game.
I just think, and it's funny that I've been, looking, I was going to talk to you about this, just a thing about the power of three. I think that the key is if you can have three guys that are scoring in the mid-teens, you'll be fine.
Right.
When you got three guys, I've looked at some of the best teams in the state this year, 18, 16, and 15. Another team had 18, 16, 15, 11. I think the teams that struggle the most in the off season, they're the good teams. They got one team I looked at had guys scoring 27 and 13 and 8. If that guy doesn't have a very good night, I don't think they're going very far.
I know it's hard.
I think that balanced approach. It's that balance.
It is,
approach.
And we're a hard scout.
You've had some really good players, but you've had more. I think the balance, it's just harder to scout. And it's always that one guy. I think we're talking about postseason. It's always that one kid you don't expect to do it, and they just make something happen. It happens in every state tournament game I've ever watched. It's like this kid just makes a play, or they make a big shot. You don't expect it. You just don't expect it.
I know,
that's a sign
depth.
of a good team, though.
I do have depth.
It's a sign of a good team, right? Is when that guy, when things are going wrong, you got somebody else that can fill that void.
Yeah, I know, and I feel like that. I feel like, can we lose? Yes, but do I feel like we have some of the teams that can click? I do. I really do. It's like, and if we can go far in the sectional, who knows? Like, we win the sectional, we can win it. At least have
one game at a time.
Yeah. You think? I know.
Yeah.
All right. So leading into that, that's a good lead in. So attending the state tournament, if you're not in it, do you think that's a good idea? Why or why not?
I don't know. It depends. I think it's a great opportunity, but now with how TV is, you can be able to sit on your couch and watch the games. It's kind of nice.
I'm usually doing radio. I'm usually doing radio if I'm not
Yep. For me, when I was a high school coach, I was always going every year. And then, as my daughter got older and, those type of things, I tended to just stay home.
Right.
I think it's a good time, but I don't think do you really think people really build connections and stuff at the state tournament? You really think that really happens?
I think it used to before the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, which is referred to as the WIA, messed up the state tournament by getting rid of Thursdays mornings, and because people used to come down on Wednesday and then build community. But
I remember, yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so I think and people don't come on Thursdays now. They come down for Friday. They come down late, and then they, So I think that's.
I also think it's a one thing to see a team on TV, and that's another thing to see a team live. And I think a young coach watching it,
young coaches should go. Yes,
they should really go. And I would just say that it's a great experience. I think you can get a lot of. It's funny that I watch a lot of times. I'll be watching what the coaching staffs are doing. It's hard when you become a basketball coach just to enjoy the game. I think that's the hard part now. Is like you watch it, so you micromanage everything that you watch, right?
I can't watch.
When I watch a college game, I'm like, what are they running there? Let me go back and let me see that baseline out of bounds play. What kind of screen coverage is that? Like I just know that my wife and my friends get so annoyed at me, but that's how I watch the game now for so long, or I watch what these coaching staffs are doing, and it's good to see though, because the best teams, they really have the best teams have a staff they're so fluid, right? They just know when something happens, it's going to happen. They got the rotation. It's good to see. And, I would say definitely for an early coach, going to the state tournament is a great opportunity. And seeing it live is definitely worth your time.
Here's my theory with going to the state tournament is when you're a high school coach, your objective should be to win a state title. That should be your objective. It was my objective, 25 years ago, even though we took over a horrible program. But that was my objective. So you want to see the promised land. You want to see what's going to happen when you get there, what introductions look like. So all that I think is really important.
I do too, but I also think that there's a lot of time if you're not making it past like your regional, going to sectional games are awesome. Those are some really good environments or really good games to watch. I think that sometimes the state games, depending on your sectional, you'll see some of the better games in the sectional time or a regional final. I think young coaches should really get out and watch other teams play,
No,
and especially teams that are in their division. So let's say that your Division 3, even taking an hour drive to go and watch what other Division 3 teams are doing north of you or west of you or south of you. I'm getting a gauge of what these programs are doing, because this every year you look at the rankings, it's normally the same teams every year that are usually your top teams. Once you build that program, they kind of do it for a long period of time. You'll have a couple teams that have a good class or two, but a lot of teams are always there, for a long period of time, and it's good to see that, and especially in those environments.
right. And going back to that, it's like I always tell people the best game to coach in, to play in, is the 2 games before you get to the Kohl Center, which holds 18,000 people. Like I've coached, we went, I don't even know how many years we went, like 12, 13 straight years to the state tournament. Those games are more, I don't know what the right word, more generic, it's so big. You don't feel the crowd. You don't feel the energy.
You don't, and it's a bigger court. It's a little bit different. I don't think kids shoot as well. I don't think the game is. I think the games overall, those sectional games are like really good games of basketball.
Well, no, it's because you put 3,000 or 4,000 people in a gym that's meant to not hold that many. It's crazy. It's awesome. I've told my guys, it's like that's what you want. You want to play in that game. Whatever happens, it's like that's the game you want to get to. We got to win the first 2 to get to that game. Once we get to that game, it's like, let's roll the dice, But I agree. And the thing is, again, going back to the original question, should people go to the state tournament? Should high school coaches go to and experience it? I think you should. But I think your point is better, that they should definitely take their team / themselves to the sectional, because I think they'll experience.
Yeah, because that environment, watching how exciting those kids are. I get emotional just watching those high school kids and those coaches, especially like some of those guys that haven't been there a long time, and watching them get over the hump, like watching them cut the net down, like it's just like, it's a magical time.
It is.
That it's not always captured. It's not captured on TV. It's captured in that gym. Like, it's like basketball in its purity. It's a beautiful thing. If you're a big basketball fan and you're not in the sectional, you need to go into every sectional.
It's Hoosiers.
Yeah, it is.
It's Hoosiers. And the best part about it is they can't hear one word I'm saying, the officials. I can say whatever I want, and they hear zero of what I'm saying. Going back,
so you don't have to worry about You don't have to worry about building that pathway between
building
the ref and
bridges.
you, right?
I'm building bridges.
Building bridges. Sorry,
I'm building bridges.
There is no construction at sectional.
You wait. I'm going to have that official. He's going to listen to this. I'm not putting it up until after the tournament. But you wait. I'm going to have that official, like the state tournament game or the sectional game or the first regional game, and it's like building bridges. Like, what are you talking? Anyway, don't get me started. But going back to the original thing that I threw out, I think you're right. I think it's a great idea to build those things.
I think it gets kids excited.
It does.
I really do. It's a different vibe than going to the state tournament. It's just superficial. I mean, state tournament's awesome, but like that environment. Yeah, it's so much better.
It's so much better. I agree.
It's nuts.
All right. So the last topic, we got about 5-7 minutes here. We're going to try to crank this one out. End of season ideas. What do you mean by that? That was your idea, the end of season ideas. What did you mean?
I don't know. I just figured it. We didn't have anything else to talk about.
Okay. So maybe that's traditions. I don't know. I mean, is it banquet? Is it traditions? Is it, but I personally think it's preparation. Like I told you, we have 3 games this week. Once I know the seed, I'm going to prepare to win those 3 games, but I'm getting ready for tournament time. Let's go. Like, what do I need to get better at in the next 2 weeks to beat that team that we're playing in the first round? And how can I help my team get to that point? That's what I'm doing.
Right.
I mean, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I guess I was looking at the point of like after the season's over. I mean, what's the next step? I mean,
take a week off. take a week off.
You
Is
know,
what I'm gonna tell
when do
high
you
school.
when would you suggest a coach to pivot? You know, at what point do you pivot from last season to new season?
Okay, so I always have a hard fast rule that once the season's over, post spring break is when I gather again. So I try to take. That's really the only 2 or 3 weeks that I take not
Do you
doing.
even open up the gym for the kids?
Nope. That's not true. Sometimes I'll practice actually. So, like last year, I think we practiced before spring sports. We got in the gym because we can be in the gym until the state finals because anybody can practice even when your season's over. So that
And
was the big
you
one.
had a young team last year
coming out of COVID. That's what we did.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I've seen coaches do that before.
And I don't know you get much out of it, but it's more just kind of that relationship bonding, building thing. I think is important. I think it definitely helps. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a deeper topic that we probably want to get into today.
No, for sure.
So let's put a pin on end of season ideas, and we'll come back because by the time I get the other stuff kind of loaded, I think in the podcast up, we'll be able to talk because I think we want to talk about postseason meetings. We want to talk about some of the things, some of those nuances that we've talked about before. But I think we want to do a deeper dive into that.
And I also just want to take a deeper dive of what high school players should be doing in the off season. You know, I think we continue to touch on the AAU circuit, and I read some articles lately about that. And you know, I'm looking at these statistics. You know, you're not going to become a great scorer by playing more games all the time. You know, and so I think those are some other. I'd like to really touch on that a little bit because I think that's a fallacy that we see more than ever. Is we're just going to keep playing more games and games and games, and I become a better basketball player.
No, I think that's a great idea. All right, until I'm back in Wisconsin and we talk again, Jake.
Yeah, safe travels. Good luck this week with all your games. And,
Yeah,
we'll talk soon.
And make sure you're watching. All right, make sure you're watching.
I will be watching. All right, take care, Coach.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, stay on for a second, Jake. I wanna get a video of us. Okay. All right, thank you, Jake. That was good. That was awesome. I want to make sure I get a picture of you on that little screen. Hold on. I'm going to take a picture of it. Hold on. You can't hear me if I move that away. I got to get my social media stuff. Hold on. Oh, you're gone. You must be gone. All right.